please welcome the incredibly talented Kinsey Machos.
Hi. Oh my gosh, Renee, I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to dive in.
So I have talked about you and Callan and Steph on other shows because I talk about the story. It's a very interesting story about how we met and how you guys flew me down to Florida and we hung out for, what's it, 2 days? It should have been longer.
I
Really
feel
did.
it was so potent though. It could have been, months, but it could
Yeah.
also have been longer. Yes.
It's so interesting though because you guys stayed at Steph's house,
Mm-hmm.
and the day I arrived, I was like coming up to the door, and then I only got nervous then. I was like, "What if these women are crazy? What
Yeah.
if I'm here and they're going to murder me? Like
Yeah.
this is a perfect
I mean,
scenario."
possibility.
Yeah. And then you answered the door. I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, she's so cute." And then I walked
And I
into the
was like, "Oh
kitchen.
my God, you're so tall and beautiful." I remember like
So
looking
tall.
up and being instantly almost like, well, intimidated, and also like, you have that like the lump in your throat. I was like, holy shit balls, this is actually happening. Oh, this is actually happening.
Yeah. And then I walked into the kitchen and I met the other girls and we just sat down, and I mean it was like 30 minutes of maybe like shooting the crap.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, let's get to work, ladies." But the what I loved about it is how I feel like I already knew you guys.
Hmm.
Like we were
Yeah, it
friends
was.
forever.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so divine in so many ways. I relived that experience so many times throughout my week because it just reminds you of the magic of life and business. And I think it's so easy to get caught in the weeds of things and you
Mhm.
forget, right? You forget like the divine experiences and the magic that occurs when you really just trust and you lean into fear. Because all of us, I think we all sort of had this. I remember when we had that conversation together about like, do you think she would actually do it? I mean, there was possibility that we could have been rejected and you could have told us no. And in fact, you kind of did, and we kind of begged you. But it was just like leaning into like, we freaking love this idea and we want something and going after it with your full heart, and it like it being delivered to you, it not just it being delivered to you, but just like in such a better and bigger way. So I love that so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and you were kind of the first guinea pigs for my VIP day in a way. And
Oh my
it's evolved in that time. That was what, when was that? April? Yeah.
god.
May, June, July.
Yeah.
So it's been
You're
like 3 and a bit months.
yeah.
And we are going to be talking about this on this call, but I was mentioning it, this call. It's like live callers calling in.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
How I've doubled my revenues since all of last year. And why that's relevant is because we're going to talk about creating an offer that is in alignment with your passion and your purpose and all of the secrets into putting something together that is not only rewarding to the people you're serving, but to yourself. Right.
Yes. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Love.
So tell us, what is it that you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah, so good. Thank you for asking. I am a marketing strategist. So we work primarily with female experts and we help them really carve out their category of one positioning and then leverage their expertise through scalable offers. Part of the system is obviously the marketing that goes behind that and the launching and the systems to create more of that predictability and the reliability. And also what's important to me and top of mind for me right now is still allowing space for that creativity, right? I think it's easy. I think it's important to have some mundane and have repeatable systems and even like that signature offer that we're really building that awareness around consistently. But we also have to create space. Well, we don't have to, but I think a lot of us desire to create that space to be, you know, creative and playful and really drop into kind of the right now energy. So
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell what we do. And like I said, we primarily work with women, typically when they're a little bit more seasoned and really starting to hit that threshold where they're feeling a little bit at capacity, whether it's in operations or fulfillment, right? More from the offer perspective. And also, it's like they might not feel like they're getting as much as they would like out of their content marketing.
Oh my gosh, content marketing. And you've dubbed the term category queen. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
really fun. It's kind of like a peek behind the scenes. We are doing some rebranding. And so, really stepping into that space of the category queen. This name came to me, it was like one of those downloads actually a year ago. And I kept waiting. You know, when you have some like a vision so big, you don't even know where to start. And it feels so big where it's like, that has to wait. And yes, when you think about the like the logistics and things like that of rebranding, there's a lot, but actually, you know, there's little pieces and parts that we're wrapping in right now. So the category queen, I think, embodies really the woman who is living in that full state of uh, alignment and joy. And I think that why this is so important to me because growing up and even in my early adulthood, I never felt like there was anything special about me. You know, it's like I was never good at sports. I was never real. There was not a particular subject that I excelled at. I was a, you know, a B student, average student. I think average would be something that came up a lot. It's like I just feel kind of average. And even when I went off to college, I didn't even know what to major in. Everybody, like a lot of my peers were like freaking on the straight and narrow. And they're like, I'm going to be this and that. And they knew what they wanted and they excelled in these things. And I just kind of always felt less than. Of course, there's so much, you know, childhood and things like that play into that. But as soon as I started to access more of my zone of genius and had that space to explore really who I was and what lit me up, it was like things just completely unleashed. And I see that in all the women that we work with. And if you think about
Mhm.
category leaders and category of one. We're all a category of one, right? There's nobody else like us. But when we apply that to business and marketing, that means we're bringing more of our brilliance, more creative energy, more of that life to the business space so that we can truly, you know, shine as that light that we already are. We're just kind of extracting more of that. So it plays a really meaningful part just for me personally and also the mission in helping more women really build the business around their true zone of genius while also living their life in happiness and joy.
Oh my gosh, I know this journey all too well because I
Mm.
lived it the last, gosh, 5 years when I closed up shop and my agency kind of rolled into coaching and I wasn't aligned with this work. I felt like it was something that I had to do and I didn't realize that I didn't have to do it. And I just remember I was trying to avoid the hardship of what it was to run my PR agency. So I was like, oh, I couldn't get back into that space because I don't want to do those things. I don't want to run a big team. And the reality is that I pay myself the same now as I did when I had $1 million agency. So I'm like,
Mm.
what happens if I just got rid of the parts of the business I didn't like? And I'm not saying this is the easy way. Believe me, there's
Yeah.
still a lot of hard things you have to do.
Hmm.
And I got rid of the parts of PR that didn't light me up. And I just focused on what I'm really good at. And that's when I created my high end offer. And that's all of a sudden when everything kind of like Tetris pieces just fall into place and I didn't even have to do anything.
Yes. That's the magic of business too. So good.
It's magic. It's magic. And I see this with you. I'm seeing it with my husband, even. And like we go through these ebbs and flows too, where it's like you're like crushing it in one business and like maybe you launch a new product or there's like a different shift or change and maybe you get into a new business. You can't really stay in
Mhm.
the same thing forever. That's rare that it would happen. But
Yes.
when you finally find that thing, it's like you got to figure out how to make it work, make it sustainable, and so it doesn't make you go crazy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think
That's
too, it's giving ourselves permission to change our mind and evolve, right?
yes.
I think that there's a lot of noise in the industry about like, you know, having the same offer for ever, or you know, you can't change your niche or whatever. I mean, that's a very at the very surface level, but also sometimes those big leaps in your business come from letting go of something, maybe someone, team member or whatever, but which
Yeah.
can be, scary.
Well, I mean, can we talk about the thing that you're changing in your company? The letting go for you is pretty big too.
Yeah. So, no, we cannot talk about it, but we can. Yeah, we're slowly making announcements, but I think, um, some of the changes that we're making in our company is just making sure that we are all operating at our full zone of brilliance. So this plays into all of our, when we think about operating at our highest zone of genius. I think it's making sure that as you grow, and I actually heard this in 10x is easier than 2x. He made a comment about 10x thinking requires you to solve a more nuanced problem. And if you think about that, even in regards to niche, I think as you grow, you really become so much aware or more aware of like who your perfect client is and who your perfect client is not. And really making sure in the way that you deliver your expertise and your services, there's going to be parts and pieces of that that are not in alignment to you and how you want to drive the business forward. And so I think it's checking in with, like, I've had to continue to check in with myself and the team and just make sure that everything that we put out into the market is in line with the types of women that we want to serve, and which may mean, right, that we're starting to say no to more things because we're just becoming much more dialed in and really fine-tuned in the message and the type of problems we want to solve for the type of people we want to work with.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Yeah, please.
So, are you ready for this? Take a sip of
I
water.
think so.
Uh,
Yes.
we talk about like your zone of genius and operating in that. When it comes to, let's say, a service based business,
Mhm.
there could be one that has a high end or like a high ticket offer. It could be a group coaching program, it could be a done with you service, whatever it is. But there's still a part of the business. Like if you're going all in on that, there's a part of the business that you have to let go of, close up shop. And that part of the business could be a huge chunk of your revenue.
Mhm.
How do you know it's time to go all in? And then how do you do that?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question because you could take this several different ways. I think there's elements of that if you want to hold a space for that type of service to serve that type of individual, you can still have that part of your business operating if you have somebody else managing it or it works like a machine. And if you think about, well, I'll take a step back. The most important thing here is that we're looking at the company and the vision of the company as a whole. And if that unit, let's say that that particular service or that particular delivery is in line with where you want to take the company, but you, as say the leader or the expert, you don't really want to fulfill on that anymore, then right, we would have to put the processes and the systems in play to make sure that it's operating. And so you're basically taking yourself out of the weeds of it, but it a lot of times it's more likely that that part of the business does have to kind of dissolve in order for your time and your energy and all your efforts to be placed in the parts of the business that are going to quantum leap you right into where you're going with the vision of the company. I think you read there's examples in this book, tons of them, where many of these large companies had to drop 80% of their revenue because it didn't line up with the bigger opportunity that they saw coming with where they wanted to go with the company. And so you could, there's parts and pieces of that you could absolutely put, automations around and team and things like that if you wanted to hold on to it. But I think if you're thinking about small business owners like you and me, I think it's really important is like, well, what do I want the company to be known for? What do I want to be known for? And where are we taking this? And is it worth the resources and the profitability to maintain it? Or is it something that we can say no to?
Oh, I like that one. That one right there that you just said.
Yeah.
Because we get into these predicaments too when we're growing our business, and at certain stages you kind of just take whatever's there so that you can pay the bills. And because nothing's ever like a perfect straight line to success, right? It's the entrepreneur roller coaster.
Yep.
But there comes a point in your business when you have to take that leap. You have to gamble on yourself, bet on yourself, essentially, that you can be successful and going the other way. So it could be that you keep doing what you're doing, which inevitably leads to burnout.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or what I like what you said is you can hire someone else to manage that part of the business, which is also totally doable. Or you dissolve it, you get rid of it, you shut it down completely so that
Yep.
you can go all in on that one thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I have a way of making up my mind when it comes to these things. I take all of these options, right? Option one, two, three. We've said 4 options. You write them out. You write them out and you put them on a piece of paper in your nightstand and you look at it every few days, every day, and you're like, okay, what is my gut saying to this? And so your gut will have the right answer.
Yeah.
Your head's going to try to wrap all the logic around it. Your heart's going to be like, well, this means I have to fire these people or let these contractors go. The
Mhm.
gut's going to be like, but that's the answer. I did this with understanding I had 6 options on how to market my business, from hiring a podcast producer to hiring somebody else to do it. And I was like, I don't know which one to choose because I just didn't know.
Mhm.
But the answer was already there. And I knew my gut was telling me. It was like, you got to hire this person full time. It was the VA.
Yeah.
So that would be the ultimate test of how to go from like offering services maybe to deciding what it is that you want to pay all of your attention to in your business,
Yeah.
which is like if
Yeah.
it's a high end coaching program, high ticket offer, whatever it is, maybe it is services. Because we're all going to face this moment in our business where there's that shift and that change and the opportunity presents itself. And you're like, is this good or bad? Do I take it? Is this just a shiny object? Is this just
Yes.
busy work?
Yes. And I think that some of these decisions, right, you can't, there's a certain decision that I was sitting with for a very long time. And like you said, the answer was there the whole time, but so your gut knows it, but then like you said, your brain pops in and it's going to tell you like that makes no sense. And then you justify it. And so and I think this is counterintuitive to what we also know to be true about owning a business is like we do have to look at the data. We have to look at the facts and we cannot necessarily make decisions out of emotion. But there is this element where it is just intuition and intuition is also connected to the vision and like as the visionary and what you see for the business and where you want to go. That is not there's no data around that, right? There's no logic necessarily around that. Visionaries are we're crazy. Nothing that we do or say really
we
makes sense, right?
are
And
so
so
crazy.
yeah. So I think I love what you said about like you just write down your options and then you check in what's your immediate reaction because then there's going to be a secondary reaction and your secondary is usually like the ego or the fear or whatever chiming in. And for so long it was that secondary reaction that I was sitting into, kind of ignoring more of the intuition. And so but it's a practice too. It's not something that
Yeah.
comes very easily. And I think to your point, we're going to be faced with these types of decisions all the time, whether it's big, like letting go of a completely like a unit of your business or a service, or it's small, right? Like a team member or
Yep.
a structural change in the offer itself. But you have to really listen and learn how to be a really good decision maker, which is, it's not overnight. And I think it's an evolution.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Sometimes we think too hard on decisions too.
Oh,
It's like the best way to do it is you collect as much information as you need without procrastination
yeah.
and then just make a decision.
Yep.
Just do it. Did you
Just do
know
it.
that men are quicker decision makers than women?
Oh, I haven't actually heard that stated, but I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah, there's some data. I got to find it. There's some data behind that too. It's obvious. And I think part of it comes into how we doubt ourselves so
Yes.
much. We doubt ourselves. And then because say a man makes a decision, it's the wrong decision for the most part. They're like, oh, okay, well, then they find a different thing to do. But
Right.
women will beat themselves up over the wrong decision. It's like, just get over it and move on.
Yes. Oh
Like
my gosh.
I cannot um, book a dinner for my husband and I at the restaurant of my choosing. I just can't
Mhm.
because I'm like, what happens if he's already eaten there too much? If he doesn't like it, what happens if the atmosphere isn't great? So I'm always like, can you just take care of it? So then he thinks I'm lazy. And it's not that I can't take care of it or I won't take care of it. I'm just so deathly afraid of making the wrong decision of where we go to eat.
Oh my gosh.
And think about that in
Same.
business, it happens too.
Yeah. Total decision fatigue. And I think too, this plays into the roles that we hold as women, right? We have a little bit more clutter in our brain. I'm always thinking about cheer practice and what's for, what I need to do in the house or whatever. I have a little bit more clutter. And so sometimes it feels a little bit quote unquote harder
Your
to make
27
a
tabs that are
decision.
open.
All the freak, yes. I mean, that's like such a that is the epitome of my brain is all the
Yeah.
tabs open, like literally. And so, and I think, men just do a little bit better job compartmentalizing maybe, but it is the decision fatigue. And we also, I think we can solve that problem by closing more loops for ourselves, like exiting out of tabs. But when it comes to brain loops, we actually open a lot of loops mentally without really knowing it, right? Even when we just ask ourselves the question, like, what should I do? Now that's an open loop that's actually expending energy. And even though you're not aware of it, you've just opened a loop for your brain to kind of like spin out on. So you're subconsciously have this machine running now that's consuming your energy and your emotional mental capacity. And so women, especially by the end of the day, I think we're totally burnt out because we open so many loops during the day without actually mentally closing them. And so when you even think about a big decision, like you said, the sooner we can close that loop, the better we'll be, not just from the place of business, but just feeling emotionally and mentally prepared for that next season.
So I have a spiritual coach. Her name is Stephanie. She is the bee's knees and is probably the one woman in my life that has leveled me up on so many
Mm,
ways
so
because she talks about these things.
good.
And
Mm-hmm.
like spiritual coach sounds so woo woo, but here's one thing that is a quote from her. She goes, "When the universe asks if you're committed, you say yes. When the
Yes.
universe asks if you're committed, you say yes." So part of this went back to me admitting that I was a procrastinator, or as my dad called a lollygagger. And my husband and I actually went head to head on on this weekend because he's like, "Renee, you're always late, like 5 or 10 minutes late. Why?" It's like chronically. And I go, "Well, I'm not late for everything. I'm not late for this, and this. There's very specific things." So when I told this to Stephanie, she goes, "Oh, so you're never late for things that you have fully committed yourself to. Like the things that you've committed to the universe to. Never late for CrossFit, never late for bringing my kids to camp, right? Never late to going to dinner with friends, never late to parties, never late to sales calls." The
Wow.
things, even though I'd said, "Yes, I want to go on the boat with you tomorrow afternoon," there's still a part of me that didn't want to go in the subconscious. And I knew it was there. But because I
Yes.
wasn't fully committed, I procrastinated during the day. I got to it was the last minute. "Okay, Renee, get in the car." I was like, "Oh my gosh, bathing suit, towel, water, snacks." I had all day to do it. So think about where this shows up in our business life too.
Mm,
We wake up
yes.
and we just default to doing the easiest things that don't
Mhm.
move the needle in our business because we're so fully afraid to commit to the things that we know we need to do.
Oh my
And
gosh,
maybe
that is
that
so
for
true.
me could be like committed to not offering a certain thing in my business anymore because
Yeah.
I'm so afraid of saying no to people, which would also mean saying no to clients that I'm currently working with. Being
Mhm.
like, "I'm not doing this anymore come next month." But
Yes.
the worst that they're going to say is like, "Oh, that sucks. They'll move on." Like,
Yeah.
so what I loved
So
about
good.
that too, so I'll read this again, is when the universe asks if
Yeah.
you're fully committed, you say yes. Because it's
Love
either
that.
yes or it's no. There's nothing in between.
Yes. And
And
the
that's
in
for everything.
between is the energy suck, right? The in between.
That's where I find myself. Well, I see this with a lot of women. They're just stuck
Mhm.
there because they
Yes.
think they have to say yes to everything and they can't say no. They can't
Mhm.
say no. There's always a rebuttal if they say no. I
Yeah.
say, let's say no more often.
Yeah. And I see this a lot too, even though when it's a yes, and I think the same thing, but it's they're not, it's not an all in yes. It's kind of a yes, but I just want to like try it out. It's kind of like, somebody that, if so, I have a girlfriend, she's, recently divorced. So she's out dating, and she was talking about a lot of the men that she is meeting, like they're half committal. Like they say they want a relationship, but then they're like too afraid to have a relationship. And so what they're doing, they're just like dipping their toe. And it's like, what are you going to get as a result by going half in on something? And
Yeah.
so to your point, it's like, you can say, even if you're saying yes to growing your business or taking to the next level, but you're not actually doing the stuff that you need to do to go there, like you're just, it's just this like swimming and like the energy suck of being the in between, and
Yeah,
it's
and then you
shame.
have to live there. You have to
Mm-hmm.
stay there. Like this
Not
is the same for if you want to get sober, if you want to lose
fun.
weight, if you want to
Yes,
quit your job. Like you
yes,
commit or you don't.
yes,
Commit to
so
not
true.
committing or commit to doing it.
Yes.
To
Oh
be
my gosh.
full in. And it's like make that bold, brave move. I was mentoring this woman once who was I forget exactly what it is, but she was training canines that
Oh,
were to be, anyways, it's a kind of a cool job, but she was
yeah.
falling out of love with it. And she had this offer to like take over her fiance's parents' business, and but they were like putzing around about it. And I was like, dude, just call an intervention. You want to quit your job, but you want to take over this company. And they clearly have indicated they want out, but they're not because it's them. They built it. It's like it's a huge part of their blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm.
I go, they're just going to run it into the ground. So she called this intervention. She was deathly nervous. And she's like, I'd be interested in buying this business or buying into this business because she was already involved. And they said, we would love that. So then all of a
Wow.
sudden on our next call, she's like, oh, wow. So I just told them what I wanted and they said yes. I'm like, wow, that's crazy how it works like that.
Weird.
We're so weird. So weird if you ask for it. So weird.
Oh my
But
gosh.
all this to say, I want to go back to this topic of how to design profitable and scalable offers. And you
Yeah.
guys, this all matters. All of what we just said
Mm.
totally matters on so many
Yes.
levels. But the big thing here too is how to do this to get that allows your clients to get winning results.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
what you do, and then I guess give us like a little breakdown about how you knew you found the thing that gets your customers the results that they're seeking.
Yeah, this is good. So I think this is a really good segue because, first of all, when we think of profitable offers, we also have to check in with ourselves because profit's going to come also from the passion behind it. So, just in like, if you don't love what you do, it's going to feel so hard to talk about it, market it, sell it. So I think that's the first point. And what you'll find is as you evolve in your business, right, this is going to grow. There's a difference between like getting bored by something. Again, we want to create some mundane because that's what creates freedom is like the systems and the repeatability around it. But really making sure, do we love this offer? And there's always things we can do to really increase that excitement around it. But first of all, when we think of profitability, we also want to just like check in, like, do I love this? And I find that a lot of women are just selling something because they think it's the winner. And so they're not even connected with it. And so that's the first thing. So,
Mhm.
do you love it? And do you get excited about the transformation that you're offering women? So, when it comes to offers and services, so we can talk about this in context to, I would imagine that we have a lot of service based um,
Yep.
listeners, and also tying into more of the like scalable, like group coaching, mastermind type of experiences. But when it comes to really creating that high end experience, I think it's important to really look at where the industry is going. I haven't been in the industry for a super long time, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an OG. But even in the last 4 years, we've seen such an incredible shift. And I don't know, Renee, I would love for you to validate this or not. But I think, first of all, our consumers are becoming more sophisticated. right? So if you think about same techniques, right? It's there when we market to our more sophisticated buyers, which with a high end offer, right? It's aligned with a high end buyer. And so just becoming aware of like they have been through the ringer. They've heard it all, they've seen it all. And so really prioritizing that relationship with the buyer and that connection, which we can still do through, traditional mechanisms. But if we are not invested in that connection, people can feel that. So we have this shift where our consumers are becoming more sophisticated, and also most recently, I think what we're seeing is like this divide between super high ticket, high end customized experiences and services with very low ticket like teasers or test drives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the middle, and this is what we've found to be true, the middle ground, what used to work of like 3 to 5K group coaching programs, it's kind of like in the gray, right? And if you think about even where our economy is, we've seen the divide of like the people that are, there's a bigger divide between, people that are making money and the people that aren't. And it's just fact if you think about the economic shifts and the inflation and things like that. So when you think about even low ticket and high ticket, it makes sense. So I think about myself as a buyer, and I'm less likely to invest in a high ticket experience without taking that test drive first. And this could be just your free experiences, free launch events, free content. But also, how do we turn a buyer into a buyer without making them invest or commit to something very big first? So I'm always thinking about this value ladder, if you will, or this client journey from that regard of like a lot, just it's low ticket does not equal a low ticket buyer. I think what we've seen is low ticket gives people that opportunity to test drive you. It's kind of like if you were to have a boutique, right? If you didn't have a fitting room and people couldn't try on your clothes, right? They're less likely to buy unless you're like me, and I think I can do it without trying it on, and I have to go back anyway, right? And try it on. Or, exchange the sizes. It's just stupid. Anyway,
You can't do that if you're a 6 foot tall woman.
yes,
Nothing is designed
yes,
for her.
exactly. So I think it's important to have these different what's been coming to me is like flavors. How do we give our audience different flavors of things, while also creating that redundancy and that reliability around a signature service or experience? And that's where the really like the profitability comes in. You're not going to see a ton of profitability with more of the low ticket. Those are really for that acquisition, that test drive, getting them in your ecosystem, because a buyer is a buyer is a buyer. And so just making sure you have those systems and those structure to make sure that they are being supported on that journey. And then when it comes to that higher end service, we look at people, process, and pathway. So if you have a service and you're also looking to even make it more profitable and or streamline it, we're going to look at, do you have other people in your ecosystem, in your team, or your contractors that can support that particular service or experience? Do you have processes that you could put around it to really automate or systemize that service or experience? And then the pathway. What is the pathway that you're taking your client on to get them that end result? And a lot of times, if that pathway is too long, we get a little bit wobbly with the offer or the journey. If it's too short, right, we're not bringing it full circle so that they can get to the finish line. And so when we look at the pathway of the client, when we dial that in and we really systemize it, what happens is we want our clients and our consumers and our customers to know exactly where they're going and what to expect and where the finish line is and what they need to do, what we need to do. And then we're all on the same page, really tracking together. So I just vomited all the things. I think I answered your question.
You did.
Was
You
that
did.
helpful?
I loved it. So designing profitable and scalable offers. Yeah. And I think that, the title alone intimidates me because it seems like it's so masculine too. And that's like
Yeah.
profitable and scalable offers.
Yeah.
And like, the reality is like your first offer isn't going to be the home run. It rarely happens.
Oh,
And you build on
no.
it and you evolve and you build, and like we're always evolving, changing, updating, tweak. Because here's the thing too, is our customers evolve in that journey. So you have
Yes.
this ideal customer, but they're also living a life and they're changing. And so
Mhm.
we can choose to stick with that ideal customer, which means that we also have to evolve as a company, or
Yeah.
we have to find somebody else who we're going to be targeting. So
Yes.
it's that constant evolution. Think about it,
Yes.
even like Coca-Cola, right?
Yes.
Coca-Cola is still one of the biggest organizations in the world. It's the most recognized brand in the world. But they're also coming up against a huge shift in the market because consumers are getting so much smarter about what they're consuming. And
Yes.
so all of a sudden it was just Coke, and then it was Diet Coke, and then it's Coke Zero, then it's caffeine free Diet Coke. Then there's all of these evolutions of the brand that evolves with the customer because the market shifts.
Mhm.
And that's one
Yeah.
thing we have to keep a pulse on. There's some people that have it's pretty much the same offer they've had for a very long time. Example would be like Marie Forleo,
Yes.
although she's
Amy
evolved a little
Porterfield.
bit too. Amy
Mhm.
Porterfield, but she launched a membership.
Mhm.
And so like her program is still important, Digital Course Academy, because people are still learning how to make courses and how to do it well. Well, how she's teaching it is probably changed. And then the
Mhm.
add-ons now is becoming a part of the coaching program. So
Yep.
she and we are keeping a pulse of what our customers want, need, and making
Yes.
those change based on that, but also staying true to what we love to do, our purpose, our
Yes.
passion, what pays the bills, and what
Yes.
makes us successful.
Yes. And I think it's if you're if a listener here is feeling a little bit confused about, okay, where do I start? We want to first nail the pathway. Like, how do you get somebody results? I think about your VIP day. Like, this might feel very manual for you, or it did at first, because it's all you. It's all you, it's all your time, right? And the what you've done so well is, like, you've dialed that in. You know how to get people to the finish line of what they're looking for by also learning along the way. Like, doing the grit, like doing the dirty work, if you will, right? That pathway. And as you started to solidify that, now you get to build, it's like, okay, this part I could delegate to a team member, right? This part I can put around, like put a process around. And then as the market shifts, as the industry shifts, as you shift, you get to kind of move those pieces around to maintain profitability, but also really like keep your passion alive and awake,
Mhm.
if you will.
Yeah. Yes. And like then there's the 7-year itch where a lot of people kind of get sick of everything at the 7-year mark, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
parenting, being married. It's like
Yes.
gotta spice things up, guys. Um, but it's inevitable for anything that we do. And you think about even professional athletes. I mean, their time is done quicker because they can only stay so young for so long.
Yes.
But how you get through that. But for people starting out or deciding on what to do and creating those high ticket offers or scalable coaching programs or service offers, it's really looking at, you're right. Like, what do the customers need and how can you get them from A to B to Z
Yeah.
without costing an arm and a leg?
And solving for the highest value problem. So for you, like for example, right, let's use PR. You could help somebody just starting out in their business.
Mhm.
But is that the best use of your zone of genius? And also, do you have the resources and the capacity to help that person? And do they have the income or the revenue to be able to invest in you? You could also help a much more seasoned business, right?
Mhm.
And that's obviously where you decided to target, because that is where you're being utilized the most. Your zone of, like, you're solving for bigger problems for that more seasoned business owner. And I think we're naturally, yes, we have expertise that could serve so many different types of
Yeah.
people, but we want to start from the top. Like, if you think about your premium audience and that top 1%, who is that? And once you nail that, you can have that, you have the options to go down the ladder, if you will. You could have a course that helps maybe beginner entrepreneurs or business owners, that maybe, it is a little bit more of that scalable option for you. It doesn't require a lot from you, but it also doesn't have to be that way too. I think we're,
Yeah.
to scale up, you can stay at that top percent, and you're just reaching more of those type of people and also streamlining the insides of the business, but always remembering to solve for the biggest problem that you can solve for. It's really normal for women to like shrink themselves because of the insecurity and the doubt that we
Mhm.
experience, right? Coming into the market, it can be really overwhelming. And so we talk ourselves out of that, and then we play small, and then we're completely out of alignment. Like, if you can help somebody lose 100 pounds in 6 months, why would you market yourself as a general weight loss coach?
Right.
Right? Or
Yeah.
if you can help somebody exit corporate and start a business. Why would you tell people that you can help women live a good life? I mean, again, the more specific and nuanced you can get and really believe and go all in on that problem that you solve, the higher quality audience you'll build around you and the more premium buyer you'll attract.
That's true. The riches in the niches.
Yeah, baby.
Bitches. It's true. And it's tough. It's tough. I know that when I had my agency, we went from servicing anybody that would hire us to deciding who we wanted to work with and to get super niche about it because we had to also understand that audience a lot better. So we worked with funded technology startups, and
Mm,
most of them came out of the Valley or New York, and that was fine.
yeah.
And so then we knew geographically where to target our messaging and our marketing. And then it just became a hell of a lot easier for us to find customers that way. Also, in the PR space, we were building those relationships with tech journalists. And so if we're super specific there, that's
Yes.
all we have to focus. We're not focusing on mummying or parenting or fashion. It was tech, so people knew that's what we were for.
Yes.
And some other people would come in, and yes, we could still service them if they weren't in technology. But being that niche allowed us to do our work really well too.
Yes. And that's what creates that scalability also, because you're not splitting hairs, solving different problems, implementing different
Yep.
services for different types of people.
Exactly. So you're just spreading yourself too thin. Okay.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you.
Okay.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh my gosh. I I know that it's definitely taking that unconventional path and going against the grain. I think that it's in alignment even to how I think of a category queen who is willing to go all in on herself. And I think even in a society where we're kind of given this belief that being bold is bitchy, or being, take like doing things for yourself is selfish, or um, women are supposed to kind of be small. I think it's going against that and going like really, really going all in on yourself and your expertise and what you want in life and asking for it. I think that's what that means to me.
Yeah, ask for it. So, where can people go online to find you?
I think Instagram would be great. Connect with me over on Instagram. I would say Threads. I feel like Threads is like consuming so much of my time and energy. I don't even want to
Yeah.
talk about that. But Instagram. So at Kinsey Machos. I would love for anybody to shoot me a message over there and really connect with me and have an actual real life conversation.
You're right. Well, Kinsey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Renee. It's such an honor. And I just have to give you a quick shout out, and the way that you came into my life, and
Mm.
again, it was divine timing, and you have impacted me in such a big way, really. Not just PR, not just helping me build a PR strategy that I can hand off to my team, but really just unlocked so much in me. And your energy has just been so incredible. And it's been really fun to grow closer to you. So thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
And I feel the same with you, Kinsey. You have incredible content online. Um, but not to have to give you a compliment because you just gave me one, but genuinely, here's something I know about you is that you are just teetering on the brink of something much bigger for yourself. And I
Okay.
feel it for you.
I just got
So
goosebumps.
don't forget us when you're
All
flying
right.
your private jets
Yeah.
across.
Okay, but I'll be flying my private jet to you
Yeah,
and
please,
just
please.
landing right there in your front yard.
Well, there's not room for that. You can take a helicopter up here.
Perfect.
Um, but no, this is a great conversation. I've learned a lot. But thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.